Hello and welcome. Tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari pledges to bequeath the legacy of free and fair election in Nigeria and the ECOWAS sub-region. Former director of Kenya's Anti-Corruption Commission, Patrice Lumumba, charges African politicians on need to render service to the people. He was speaking at the 10th Memorial Lecture in honor of Second Republic Senate leader, Dr. Lushola Saraki. Plus, Channels Television wins Station of the Year award at the 2022 edition of the Nigeria Media Merit Award for a record 15th time.
On business news tonight, Nigeria and the UK sign agreement to pursue an enhanced trade and investment partnership.
On sports news tonight, a late strike from Casemiro helps Brazil beat Switzerland as the Seleção secure their place in the World Cup last 16 with a game to spare.
From Abuja, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo seeks involvement of sub-nationals in the nation's health sector reforms to achieve the desired results for the health sector.
And in international news from London, police in Beijing, Shanghai and other major cities across China are out in force after unprecedented protests took place against COVID regulations over the weekend.
And if there is a legacy I would want to leave behind, that would be a free, fair and transparent election, not just in Nigeria, but in the entire West African sub-region. And that's coming from President Muhammadu Buhari while addressing delegates at this year's second ordinary session of the ECOWAS Parliament in Abuja. The president, who also observed that the global economic downturn has negatively affected countries in the sub-region, is asking the leaders to work towards surmounting the challenges. Our State House correspondent Gloria Umezuke reports.
President Muhammadu Buhari joins his African counterpart, President of Guinea-Bissau and Chair of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, Mr. Umaru Embalo, among other ECOWAS representatives at the opening session of the ECOWAS Parliament. As Parliament convened, the President harped on the critical need to address the shared challenges of insecurity and political instability, especially ahead of the upcoming elections.
Let me see this opportunity to reiterate my commitment to free, fair and transparent elections and smooth transitions. This is one legacy. This is one legacy that I want to bequeath, not only to Nigeria, but to the region as a whole. I therefore urge you to perform your sacred responsibility of considering the community budget with diligence, while bearing in mind the sacrifice of various countries in the payment of community levy.
As in the first ordinary session of the Parliament held in July, Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, Mr. Sidi Mohamed Tunis, appeals to members to ensure that ongoing hardships are mitigated through greater collaboration and political will.
I am, however, convinced that to deliver for our own people, we must engage deeply and work together towards a shared future for each of our countries and the ECOWAS region as a whole.
The Authority of Heads of
President of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Omar Aliyu Toure, urged members to reinforce initiatives towards tackling threats.
It is towards this goal that we have identified 4 strategic objectives that would be the focus of our management in the next 4 years. 1, enhanced peace and security in the region. 2, deeper economic and social integration. 3, good governance. And 4, inclusive and sustainable development.
Before the end of the session, President Buhari assured the ECOWAS parliamentarians that the groundbreaking ceremony of the ECOWAS Commission's headquarters, constructed by the Chinese government, will hold on December 5. From the International Conference Center, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And staying with issues of leadership, politicians in Africa have been told to see political office more as a call to service rather than a birthright. This admonition is coming from former director of the Kenyan Anti-Corruption Commission, Professor Patrice Lumumba, who was a guest speaker at the 10th Memorial Lecture in honor of Second Republic Senate leader Dr. Olusola Saraki. Dr. Lumumba also used the occasion to challenge politicians in Nigeria to address issues in their campaigns ahead of the 2023 elections because, according to him, the era of money politics is gone and most electorates are now concerned about capacity and character.
Popularly called Oluyi, Dr. Olusola Saraki died 10 years ago. And today, family, friends and political associates are here to mark his 10th memorial anniversary.
President, Commander-in-Chief.
The major sides of Nigeria's political divide are present here to honor the late patriarch of the Saraki dynasty and Second Republic senator. His son and the president of the 8th Senate, Dr. Bukola Saraki, in his welcome address, reflects on how his father would have felt about the gathering.
If my father was around, he would be so proud of the gathering in this hall this morning. He would be so happy the way Nigerians have forgotten our differences to celebrate him. We'll be happy to see the multi-party, non-partisan, purely patriotic and nationalistic color of this gathering.
For the chairman of the occasion and Sultan of Sokoto, true leadership must unite and not divide Nigeria.
It's important because we are into political activities and we are looking for leaders to steer the ship of state to an excellent destination. So we must look at who a leader should be, what a leader should not be, what we should do as followers to ensure we have a good leader. If you have good leaders, you have good followership. If you have bad followership, you have bad leadership. Because we know the importance of pricking people's conscience, telling them what to do and how to do things. Or Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio said, conscience is an open wound. Only truth can heal it. So we have to tell our leaders the home truth. Sometimes when we say the truth as it is, some leaders don't feel so good about it. But we'll continue talking to them, we'll continue saying the truth in whatever we do and whatever we say. Almighty Allah will ask you when you meet him, what did you do with the leadership I gave you in the world?
The guest lecturer, a Pan-Africanist who is also an anti-corruption activist and good governance and leadership advocate, is emphatic about why Africa's greatest challenge is good leadership.
And African leadership must be seen in those contexts. There are those in many African countries who have allowed themselves to be acolytes of the neo-colonizers and to the detriment of the continent of Africa. So when we interrogate leadership, we must ask ourselves, how free are our leaders? How free are our politicians from external influence? But is that an excuse? No, it cannot be an excuse. Leaders in a multi-ethnic environment must also be different.
Professor Lumumba is also urging the Nigerian electorate to go to the polls come 2023 and elect leaders at all levels who are servants that would lead from the front and not leaders who would feed fat on the common patrimony of the people.
And the best man did.
He's given a standing ovation after his speech. Professor Lumumba is known to speak truth to power. And with the quality of audience at this meeting, comprising present and former leaders, he no doubt struck a chord, as he finds a true leader to a servant, not a master of the people.
To electoral matters now, and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has again expressed serious concern over threats to conduct the 2023 general elections owing to the incessant attacks and arson on its facilities. The chairman of the commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, raised the concern at a meeting with members of the African Union Special Pre-Election Mission who were on a visit to assess preparations for the general elections. According to the INEC chairman, the attacks and arson on some of the facilities in some states has led to the destruction of some materials that were procured for next year's elections.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, receives the audience, members of the African Union Special Pre-Electoral Mission at the INEC headquarters in Abuja.
Good morning, National Commissioners, Secretary to the Commission.
The African Union delegation is here on a solidarity visit and also to find out the level of preparations for the 2023 general elections.
We would like to hear from you how much we are prepared for this exciting election, how much consensus is there in emerging. We are here on a supportive mission, really, and we are very keen to ensure that we have the best possible, peaceful and credible process.
The visit of the African Union delegation is happening barely 3 months before the general elections, and the Independent National Electoral Commission is raising serious concern about recent attacks and arsons on its facilities.
In spite of the progress that we are making, the Commission is still concerned about the security situation generally in the country, particularly the incidence of attacks on our facilities. In the last 3 weeks, 3 of our local government offices were attacked in 3 different states of the Federation, and the last one occurred yesterday in the southeastern part of the country. Now, although there were no casualties, but quite a number of the materials already acquired and delivered for the elections have been lost.
Nigeria's 2023 general elections will begin next year, with the presidential election holding on February the 25th. The INEC chairman informs the African Union delegation that it will deploy the biometric voter accreditation system, otherwise known as BVAS, during the elections, and also transmit polling unit results electronically.
To legal matters, the Court of Appeal in Abuja has affirmed that Mr. Bashir Sharif Machina is the authentic candidate of the All Progressives Congress for Yobe North Senatorial District. The court upheld the judgment of the Federal High Court Damaturu in Yobe State, which held that the President of Senate, Ahmed Lawan, is not the candidate of the APC for Yobe North Senatorial District in next year's election. The court had submitted that Mr. Lawan did not participate in the legally recognized primary election of the APC to select its candidate in the election held on the 28th of May 2022. Delivering judgment on the appeal filed by the President of Senate, a 3-member panel of the Appellate Court led by Justice Monica Dongbam-Mensem held that the primary election conducted by the party on the 9th of June is invalid as it was in breach of the Constitution. The court also held that the law is settled as to INEC's involvement in the party's primaries, which is to monitor, and the primaries of 9th of June were not monitored by the Electoral Commission. It also asked the appellant, that is the APC, to pay the sum of 1 million naira to the first respondent, Mr. Bashir Machina, as cost. Meanwhile, the appeal court sitting in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, has reinstated all the People's Democratic Party candidates in Ogun State after setting aside a Federal High Court judgment which ordered fresh primaries for the PDP. Mr. Segun Seriki and other plaintiffs had filed a suit seeking the court order to enforce their rights as the rightful and legitimate PDP candidate for the 2023 general elections in Ogun State, having emerged victorious from the primary conducted by a faction of the party. But in the judgment delivered by Justice Folashade Ojo today, the appeal court affirmed that it is the exclusive right of the national body of the party to conduct the primary, and therefore Prince Seriki conducted an illegal and unlawful primary, rendering it a nullity. The appeal court directed all parties involved, including INEC, to follow the decision of the court, which reinstates all candidates of the PDP in Ogun State. And staying with judicial matters, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, is reiterating the call for the amendment of the 1999 Constitution to allow certain cases terminate at the Appellate Court. These were his views at the commencement of the 2022-2023 legal year of the Supreme Court. 62 lawyers from the academia and solicitors were also elevated to the rank of senior advocates of Nigeria. Let's head to Osun State, where the House of Assembly there has rejected the decision of the newly inaugurated governor, Senator Ademola Adeleke, to rename the state from State of Osun to Osun State. Governor Adeleke had, during his inauguration on Sunday, reversed the name of the state from State of Osun to Osun State and also reversed its appellation from State of the Virtues to State of the Living Spring. The Assembly, through a statement by its chairman, House Committee on Media and Publicity, Moshood Akande, however, argued that the anthem, crest and flag of the state were enactments of a law assented to on December 18, 2012, and no person can exact force to change it. In part two, after the break, Channels Television wins Station of the Year Award at the 2022 edition of the Nigeria Media Merit Award for a record 15th time. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. Here's a reminder of our top stories. President Muhammadu Buhari pledges to bequeath legacy of free and fair election in Nigeria and the ECOWAS sub-region. Former director of Kenya's Anti-Corruption Commission, Patrice Lumumba, charges African politicians on need to render service to the people. He was speaking at the 10th Memorial Lecture in honor of Second Republic Senate leader, Dr. Olusola Saraki. Channels Television wins Station of the Year Award at the 2022 edition of the Nigeria Media Merit Award for a record 15th time. Police in Beijing, Shanghai and other major cities across China are out in force after unprecedented protests against COVID regulations over the weekend. Your multiple award-winning station, Channels Television, has again won the Best Television Station of the Year for a record 15th time. The award was announced at the 30th edition of the Nigeria Media Merit Award, NMMA, which took place in Lagos Sunday night. The event also showcased winners in various categories in the print and broadcast media. Our correspondent, Dario Dowu, reports.
It's an evening event to reward hard work and ingenuity in the media landscape, and this year's edition is special. It's the 30th of the series. The trustee chair, a veteran in the industry, shares his experience with the audience as a war journalist himself, but then reflects on the brutal killing of two young journalists during the Liberian War. He says journalism is a challenging profession.
Members of the profession have worked assiduously to defend freedom of the press, which provides the oxygen that keeps democracy as a system, its values, and its institutions alive. If free press dies, democracy shall inevitably go with it.
For a 30-year tradition, the pedigree and credibility of the award have been designed and sustained over the years with a list of criteria to guide the assessors.
The level of adherence to rules of the regulatory body, the percentage of local content, response to financial obligations internally and to regulatory bodies, public acceptance and perception of the media house, quality of programming and transmission, quality of reproduction in the case of newspapers, level of professionalism in content, objectivity, fairness, and balance. Finally, industrial harmony within the organization.
Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu is the chief host and was accompanied to the event by a large entourage. He urges the media to exercise a high level of professionalism as they go about their business.
We are in call for great circumspection and great fidelity to the timeless principles of journalism. Accuracy is critical, fairness at all times, balanced reportage, integrity, I imagine, is critical at all times. Your standards must never be lowered for anything, and definitely not in this age in which social media and internet has enabled the easy amplification of fake news and malicious report, hate speeches that are intended to give undue political advantage or to divide our society or even derail this our democracy.
For the Latif Jakonde Prize for Political Reporter of the Year are...
The award nominations are called, most of which are in the print category.
The Punch.
Then the broadcast media. The awards range from the reporter, presenter, producer of the year to the station of the year.
TVC.
NBC Prize for Television Station of the Year.
And the best is saved for the last. The Best TV Station of the Year award.
The winner is Channels Television.
For the champion, stand up, stand up, stand up. For the champion, stand up.
I'd like, on behalf of the chairman, Channels Media Group, Dr. John Momo, and his lovely wife, to say a big thank you to the organizers of this event. We didn't see this coming, because we've won this award for 14 times. This is the 15th time we'll be winning this award. We'd like to say that we are dedicating it to the staff of Channels TV, people who have worked so hard for this over the years. This award is for them. I thank you all, and I thank you indeed.
The NMMA has over 1,000 alumni who have been found worthy of recognition for their hard work in various media organizations across different platforms over the years, and for many, this award is a tonic for more work. Dari Idu, Channels Television News.
And thank you for making Channels Television your home for the news. We have more stories from our Abuja studios. Linda Kigwe is standing by, and congratulations to you, Linda, and the team there in Abuja.
Hello, Millicent, and indeed congratulations to everyone for the award. Now to health sector. The health sector reforms must have the buy-in of state governments to be truly functional. These were the words of the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, at the opening ceremony of the Presidential Health Reform Committee retreat, which is focused on universal health coverage for all Nigerians. While admitting that the present state of healthcare in Nigeria cannot meet up with Nigeria's ever-growing population, the Vice President states that it is imperative that the objective of the reforms in the sector be clearly stipulated. Our State House correspondent Kayla Megwa reports.
This is the first physical meeting of the Presidential Health Reform Committee, chaired by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. The committee is tasked with a review of all healthcare reforms adopted in the past 2 decades, alongside the lessons learned, and factored them into the development of a new health sector reform program. The challenges facing the sector are not lost on the Minister of Health.
My estimate is that about 50% of Nigerians, or perhaps going to 60%, are not connected to the health system of any type. And if they do, they get poor quality of service, or they face financial ruin in the course of obtaining health care.
Presentations are done on lessons learned from previous reforms, policy proposals for a health reform program, as well as responses to calls for a memorandum of understanding on the sector. The 2-day event, which includes 5 subcommittee sessions and 8 feedback sessions, will proffer solutions to these challenges. For the Vice President, a draft document which includes the buy-in of state governments should be ready by the end of January of 2023. And the issue of funding as well as implementation must be addressed.
Implementation, as we've heard also, has been incomplete, non-systemic, sometimes haphazard. and it's estimated that we require between $4 billion per annum, that's US dollars, to about $4.5 billion to be able to achieve universal health coverage. But with our annual population growth rate, that figure can only go higher. But any reform without the full participation of the states, of course, will fall short of a national health reform effort. So this is why it's so important. States are involved at every stage.
A number of issues with Nigeria's healthcare sector have been identified at this particular summit, and more will be identified in the next few days. Problems ranging from poor access to poor funding to brain drain. And even though a lot of solutions have been preferred at this event with reforms for the health sector, the question is, will these particular reforms be implemented? The Vice President in his speech says that this time the reforms that are being preferred at this particular reform session will be implemented and will be made public for everyone to be a part of it. He's also asking for the buy-in of state governments to make sure that this is actually a national reform. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria and the United Kingdom sign agreement to pursue an enhanced trade and investment partnership between both countries. That's on Business News. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the news at 10, coming to you live from Abuja. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has restated his administration's commitment to the protection of lives and property in the state, saying more investment would be made in providing security infrastructure. Governor Wike stated this during the commissioning of the Police Intelligence and Surveillance Center built by his administration to provide technological support to the police and other security agencies in the state.
The 21st Indigenous Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, in company of Governor Nyesom Wike, is received with a full complement of salute by the Forces Guard of Honor at the venue of the commissioning of the Police Intelligence and Surveillance Center in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. The facility, conceptualized and built by the Rivers State government, is to meet the modern demand of technology-driven policing. Even the heavy downpour is not able to stop the inauguration of the project the state government holds dearly to heart due to its importance. For the IGP, the facility will not only help the police but other security agencies to tackle crime, as it encourages other state governments to replicate the gesture.
In the control room, from what I heard, from the project, you can sit down and police rivers by getting a lifetime incident report. I think this is the international best practice.
Governor Nyesom Wike is promising to build another of such facility in 6 months, with plans to provide more operational logistics.
Let me say clearly, our special guest of honor, this is our own contribution to making sure we have peace, to making sure we fight insecurity, to making sure those who do business and reside here sleep with their 2 eyes closed.
The center is then inaugurated. The Inspector General of Police is accompanied by Governor Wike and other senior officers to inspect the center, although in private not to expose the system to the public, and thereafter he presents a plaque to Governor Nyesom Wike in appreciation of his support to the force.
And in Ogun State, the state governor, Dapo Abiodun, has assured residents of equitable distribution of critical infrastructure to improve the ease of doing business in the state. He was speaking in Ijebu-Ode while commissioning the 3.2-kilometer internal roads in Ijebu-Ode, Ijebu local government area of the state. Governor Abiodun also, however, seized the occasion to admonish youths in the state not to make themselves ready tools for thuggery in the hands of politicians in the build-up to the 2023 general elections.
Road infrastructure is one of the focal points of the Abiodun administration for development. To date, the governor has constructed and reconstructed over 400 kilometers of roads across the 4 divisions of the state. The commissioning of this 3.2-kilometer internal roads in Ijebu-Ode, which has been in a state of disrepair for many years, is giving the place a new look. This has, however, attracted the presence of traditional rulers, leaders of thought, market men and women who joined the governor for the ceremony.
We thank you very much for this, and we hope that when you return to the saddle again next year, you will start another revolution thinking about other areas to better the lot of the people of Ogun State.
This government is responsible. The government is responsive. This government is fair. This government is just.
The 3.2-kilometer road, which traversed many communities in the area, is built with reinforced concrete, drainages and culverts, and is expected to improve socio-economic development, security of lives and property, and a new lease of life for residents.
In the immediate past, Ijebu-Ode was almost a sponge of the map of Ogun State in terms of development. Your Excellency, we thank you for bringing us back to our place of pride in the scheme of things.
Speech is over. The governor led guests to unveil the plaque to the admiration of all. And while this is being done, many are hoping that this gesture would be extended to other communities to improve socio-economic development across the state.
And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Linda. We continue now with some company news. And a move to inspire a more responsible citizenry on sustainability practices, Unilever Nigeria PLC is using its popular laundry brand Omo to engage and educate children on waste recycling. Through its Omo Dirt is Good campaign, the company says it is lending a voice to the global concern on plastics and waste in line with the brand purpose, which is to power up the world's change makers to positively impact their environment.
Pupils of Caris School in Magodo Phase 2 bask in excitement at the instance of Omo Dirt for Good campaign. The focus is to educate these young minds on environmental sustainability by way of encouraging them to practice the collection and recycling of plastic waste.
Recycling is putting old things into new things, and it's so much fun.
Unilever is doing this in partnership with Food and Beverages Recycling Alliances and recyclers.
For us in Omo, our brand purpose is to power up change makers to get dirty for good. We all know the society norms about dirt. However, we are changing that to say that dirt can give us something good back. So for this campaign, which is Dirt for Good, we are talking to children, we're talking to students about how they can make good use of their dirt, and we are speaking specifically to plastics and proper waste management.
You will see that immediately after we had the short engagement, you see some students already putting their plastic bin in the appropriate recycling bin. So when there's going to be a system change, it's good to have a culture change, and culture change will start from young people.
In addition to the theoretical knowledge, the children are taught how to recycle from plastics, paper, straws, and other waste materials commonly found in the school environment. The recycled items result in beautiful crafts and works of art.
In school, if I see anyone recycle the wrong way, I will teach them how to recycle and show them the right way to do it. And we can start a donation to buy bins and label them.
To further encourage the children on the sorting and proper disposal of waste, Unilever donates labeled waste drums to the school. Being the first phase of the campaign, Unilever is visiting 30 schools in Lagos with subsequent plan to extend it to more schools across the country.
catching them young. It's now time for business news. Here's Will Ibong.
Thanks, Millicent. Nigeria and the UK have signed an agreement to pursue an enhanced trade and investment partnership. This was revealed today at the 8th and final UK-Nigeria Economic Development Forum in Abuja. According to UK Prime Minister's trade envoy to Nigeria, Helen Grant, a potential enhanced trade and investment partnership would include commitments to tackle non-tariff market access barriers to deliver tangible results for businesses in both the UK and Nigeria. On his part, the Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment, Mr. Adeniyi Adebayo, says the reduction in tariffs on products should be a win for both Nigerian exporters and UK consumers. Meanwhile, total trade value between Nigeria and the UK currently stands at £5.5 billion. And we go straight to the stock market report, where the equities market kicked off the last trading week of November in negative territory as investors resumed profit-taking. Jeffrey Uzona tells us more.
Hello and welcome to Stock Market Report. The 6.9% overall gain recorded last week on the NGX halted today as investors began this new trading week with profit taking. And the play is back. Well, we can see from the all-share index, the benchmark index, that it depreciated 0.25%, but still keeping strong at the 47,000 level. The market cap still maintaining that 25 trillion naira mark at the end of trade. But the activity chart is a mixed bag, two-thirds of it in the green, the value at 1.56 billion naira. Let's take a look at the gainers and the losers. And of course, Prestige Insurance leading 15 other gainers with 9.30%. On the flip side of the market, the losers counter, we see that Better Glass is leading the losers counter with 9.90%. Wow, 2 days remaining in November, and so far, it's still in the green. That's the stock market report. I'm Jeffrey Uzanga. It's back to you.
And that's it on Business News. It's back to Millicent for the rest of the news.
Thank you, Will. Still to come on the news at 10. Police in Beijing, Shanghai and other major cities across China are out in force following protests against COVID regulations over the weekend. That's on international news and around the world in 5 after this break. Turkey wants Chinese authorities to share the real cause of the fire in the apartment in Urumqi, in which 10 people died, the result of which are anti-lockdown protests reported across the country. Demonstrators have blamed lockdown rules for affecting rescue efforts in the city, but authorities deny this, insisting residents in the block were not locked in their homes or the building and could get out. Simon Pusey has more on this and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Police in Beijing, Shanghai and other major cities across China are out in force after unprecedented protests took place against COVID regulations over the weekend. Thousands of protesters took to the streets in Shanghai on Sunday night with occasional violent scenes. Meanwhile, large numbers of protesters took to the streets in Wuhan. Video showed hundreds of protesters tearing down barriers surrounding compounds under lockdowns. Here, hundreds of people took to the streets in the city of Chengdu. In some footage, dozens of uniformed police locked arms to form a line facing off, demonstrators chanting slogans. And it's not just people in China. Here, people sympathetic to the protests out in force in Sydney. And here in London. The latest demonstrations were sparked by a fatal fire in a block of flats in the northwestern city of Urumqi, which killed 10 people last week. The scale of the unrest is incredibly rare in China, where mass gatherings are highly controlled.
It's crazy. I think first it's because of the Xi Jinping, the president. We should end his dictatorship. He only cares about himself, his dictatorship. So this is why many people died of him. So, but now it's a good news. Is many people getting to realize the president is illegal.
A landslide in Cameroon's capital, Yaoundé, has killed at least 14 people who were attending a funeral. Dozens of people were attending a funeral on a soccer pitch at the base of a 20-metre high soil embankment, which collapsed on top of them. Yaoundé is one of the wettest cities in Africa and is made of dozens of steep, shack-lined hills. Heavy rains have triggered several devastating floods throughout the country this year, weakening infrastructure and displacing thousands. Meanwhile, the prefecture of Naples says a newborn baby and 2 children were among 8 people killed by a landslide on the southern Italian holiday island of Ischia. 4 people were still missing as dozens of emergency workers began to remove mud and debris from the streets after a wave of mud, debris and stones broke away from the island's highest mountain and crashed down over houses and roads. Episodes of heavy rainfall are becoming more common and more intense in the light of climate change, exacerbating hydrogeological risks in many parts of Italy. The European policing agency Europol says it has helped coordinate the takedown of a cartel managed from the United Arab Emirates, believed to control up to 1/3 of Europe's cocaine trade. Police arrested a total of 49 suspects in raids in Belgium, France, the Netherlands, Spain and the UAE. The operation to coordinate raids was dubbed Desert Light and had been planned over a period of 2 years. A small plane that crashed into high-voltage power lines near Washington, D.C. has been removed by a crane hours after both the pilot and passenger were rescued. According to the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service, the aircraft crashed in misty and wet conditions in Montgomery Village in Maryland. It became caught up in live power lines about 100 feet from the ground. Crews are still working to remove the plane from power lines. The Mooney M20J aircraft had been due to land at Montgomery Air Park, close to the crash site.
Goshen Road will be closed for quite some time as the plane needs to be secured, removed, and the power lines need to be restrung and reconnected.
And finally, dancers from all over Venezuela have filled the capital city Caracas's Sports National Institute Stadium to perform in the largest ever Rueda de Casino dance. Rueda de Casino is a style of salsa dancing where couples form a circle and do turn patterns at the same time. One of the organisers said the over 2,000 dancers aimed at bringing to Latin America the world record title that is currently held in Spain. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Portugal have booked their place in the World Cup last 16 as a Bruno Fernandes second-half double secured a 2-0 win over two-time World Cup winners Uruguay this evening. The deadlock was broken in the 54th minute when Fernandes' cross was missed by Cristiano Ronaldo and then flew straight into the net. The Manchester United midfielder then added a second in injury time from the penalty spot as Portugal moved to the top of Group H with 6 points. A 5-time world champions Brazil needed a late strike from Casemiro to edge out Switzerland by a 1-0 as they secured their place in the World Cup last 16 with a game to spare. The Brazilians had been frustrated by an obdurate Swiss side at Doha's Stadium 974, and it looked as if they would have to settle for a point after Vinicius' strike in the second half was disallowed for offside following a VAR check. But then, with 7 minutes remaining, Bruno Guimaraes flicked the ball onto Casemiro just inside the box, and the Man United midfielder's volley flew into the net with the help of a slight but significant deflection of Man City's Manuel Akanji. A Ghanaian fan celebrated outside the Education City Stadium in Doha as Ghana beat South Korea 3-2 in a pulsating encounter to keep their World Cup hopes alive and leave Paulo Bento's side facing an early exit. Ghana, the lowest ranked team in the tournament, at 61st face Uruguay in their final and a must-win match if they must advance from the group stage.
Today, It's a very tough match. To be honest, these guys played better than Portugal. They gave us run for our money. And we knew they were going to come at us because they ran a lot. And I was hoping that the sun is going to shine so they could run out of energy. But these guys, they got energy. So I give them credit for that. But we are better placed to move to the next stage. We have to go.
God, we finally, Ghana has made it. We corrected our mistakes from the first game. We thank the coach for his corrections. We have won this game. We have the last game to play against Uruguay, which of course, as management, we should make sure we need to go and make sure we need to win that game. That is going to enable us to get into the next group of the competition.
And that's Sports News. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.
Thanks, today. And the main news again. President Muhammadu Buhari today pledged to bequeath the legacy of free and fair elections in Nigeria and the ECOWAS sub-region. The president was speaking when he addressed the 2022 second ordinary session of the ECOWAS Parliament in Abuja. Also today, your multiple award-winning station, Channels Television, has added another feather to its cap by winning the NMMA Station of the Year award for a record 15th time. That's news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.